Hey Collective, it's Alan coming to you with another video that will be a standalone piece for the YouTube audience that basically piggybacks on the last video I did relating to the process of purification and what we had been going through. But I had left off at a particular junction where I hadn't really dealt with the spiritual cleansing aspect of it because I was still working through the process. And now as I begin this video, I just wanted to complete that in order to kind of bring everybody on board as to what I was experiencing and some of the things that we all have to look forward to as part of this next class, if you will, of graduates that are moving forward into what lays ahead of for us in 2025. But as I begin, just know that the sound you're hearing is the fan because I refuse to be sweating on camera anymore. So there's this fan directly behind me that is making me feel much cooler and more relaxed. So, having said all that, what I wanted to basically start with is a reiteration quickly over what we had talked about in the previous video because there was a larger amount of people that had seen it. And basically it centered around kind of the purification process that I was experiencing as part of my own ascension process of being someone who is able and willing to kind of speak about my own personal experiences in order to hopefully bring other people a sense of security or a sense of understanding as to what they may also be experiencing, because this phase of our evolution as far as the collective consciousness is pretty much uncharted because of a lot of things that we're going to discuss in this particular video that ties it up. But essentially what I was focused on with the last video centered around kind of the more physical and kind of the more mental cleansing and purging that happens as you move forward along your journey. And because of the sheer amount of things and changes ahead of for us going towards the end of this year and then into 2025, we're starting to feel things that a lot of people may not understand readily at first because they're not part of this initial wave. But having looked at the original video before I started to record this one, I just wanted to reiterate something that I didn't really mention, which is we're not the first students to do this. We're just some of the students who are more, we speak more of it. Because there was a wave of people who inspired me and kind of helped me be guided towards this path before I ever, or before you ever, came onto the scene. So we want to pay homage and a big message of gratitude to those beings who walked part of the path alone, but really had to do it without any type of audience to it, and had to kind of navigate the seas and left us bits and pieces of what we are now pulling together as a peer group. So I wanted to just pay homage to those particular people because they really were instrumental in helping me prepare for what I was going to be going through from 2019 to 2020. And so we owe them a big round of applause and a big sense of gratitude to them. And if you're one of those people, just know that I am aware of you and I'm very grateful for everything you did for us, because you have prepared us for this next leg of the journey, which was the portion of 2020 towards 2025, which I had mentioned I felt innately and intuitively that it was a dry run for what's about to happen in 2025. So one of the things I had to mention is that the physical purification and the purging that happens can be a little jarring, especially if you are in right relations to the process that you are undergoing. But understanding it as it happens is sometimes a little bit trepidatious because not a lot of people have spoken about it because, like I said, people will think you're crazy. Because until things start happening to you, you really don't have any basis or foundation from which to stand on. So just be advised that those of you who are registering with this are kind of scouts ahead of the curve and kind of laying the breadcrumbs for the next wave of people who will be going into this uncharted territory. And what I wanted to start with before I get into the spiritual purging aspect of it is to kind of remind everyone that according to our own spiritual development, what we are realizing in this present day with the advent of people and the creation and the work of people like Dolores Cannon and other great inspirational leaders, is that they are all echoing the same thing that we're just starting to discover for ourselves, which is this is really uncharted territory. For most of the scholastic school year within the Great Earth Academy, this process that we are undergoing as physical vessels is typically saved for the end of life review, meaning that when we initially would go through this process, most people would die. It would be the end of their school year before they go into their life review and then get a break, spring break or summer break, whatever you want to look at it as. And they would go through that process and then have a break, but they wouldn't be in physical shell. Whereas we're discovering that this particular class, that this particular evolutionary leap, involves a great many of us that pass certain tests, if you will, or they're in a right alignment and in the right vibration, are having to undergo it while actually physically incarnated, and we are experiencing things that have not yet been experienced by the mass. And as we head into 2025 and the next wave of them begins the ascension process, they will find the truth in what you're saying now when it's time for them, when it happens. But you are acting as pillars and inspirational leaders who are actually ahead of the curve in the sense that you are working through terrain that has not really been walked before. Because again, typically our life would end in order to get into the new. And so understanding that is super crucial and something I wanted to reiterate as I close out this two-part segment to what I've been experiencing. And so I just wanted to be clear on that. So in the previous video, I had talked about the physical purging that happened when I suddenly got really, really sick. And I told you guys that I started to vomit and I could feel that it was radioactive, almost like something that was like radiation driven, and it had a lot to do with the solar flare that happened that day. And that I started to feel as though those were like the porch lights being flickered on and off by mom and dad up above, and they're basically saying, hey kids, it's getting close to time to come home. And I had to kind of work and navigate through what that meant. Did it mean that it was for me personally? Because for those of you who don't know, my mother passed away when she was 49 and I am 46. So there is a real thing that I had to work through, a fear as to what if it meant that my life personally was coming to an end, and would I be okay with it? Because in 2019, one of the things that I had personally experienced as we were heading into this particular reset was that I had specifically been told intuitively that I needed to wrap up everything I was working on because nothing was set in stone yet. And so now that we're seeing the same thing happen again, only having done the dry run, I really had to work through my own insecurity as to what that meant. Because again, it does feel like what I've done and all of the breadcrumbs and all of the work that I've left on LinkedIn in written form and all of the work that I've documented here on YouTube could indeed be looked at as my preparation to exit the academy, and that I needed to be okay with that. But like I said in the previous video, it seemed to be a lot bigger than that, and because of the conversations and the things that we're dealing with relating to the ascension process, and understanding that we're not all of us are actually dying this time, that we're being reset while still alive, that we are physically going through some of the same symptoms that we would have experienced at the end, but we're living through it. And so we're speaking to it in a way that will relate to people who are also experiencing similar things, but that won't make a lot of sense to other people. And what I really want to reiterate in this closing piece is that don't worry about the people who aren't there yet, because you can't tell somebody something that they're not prepared to hear or that they don't want to hear. There's a lot of people who are still in willful ignorance or just not ready to accept that things are changing to this degree and may not physically or mentally be apt to understand what we're trying to say. But notice that they're not coming after you. The people that come after you are very low vibrational. They shouldn't really be on our vibration anyway. And if they do, let them go with God. Let go of God. It has nothing to do with you. But you are pioneering something that is new. And as the collective, increasingly the next wave begins to awaken, and then the wave after that, and then finally before the full end run, you have to understand that you're going to be touching on things that you stumble upon, that by your sharing your experience with the world at large will help them not stumble, or if they do stumble, instead of it being where they're just stumbling and kind of coming to epiphanies and stuff on their own, that you will be the pillars where they go, oh, that's what they were talking about. And that's super important for us as a collective, especially as a peer group, at this level, to be really analyzing and kind of experiencing. Because with the physical purge, then came the mental purge. And as I told you guys in the previous video, it was a lot of gunk that was kicked up during that process. And it struck me at the time when I was going through the mass part of the physical, where I was suddenly aware of the solar flares and kind of seeing the forewarning of what's to come in the next year, and kind of the due diligence that comes with preparing the body for change of that degree, and understanding that regardless of what happens, whether I stay or go, I want to have the cleanest vessel I can have. And so I'm very, very careful these days. I don't put any drugs into my system. I don't have any physical ailments that I would need it, but if I did, it would just be those things that keep me alive. I wouldn't do anything recreational, because I have to purify myself in order to really walk through this path. And instead of me being afraid that could be the ending of my life, instead I realized it could just be helping other people prepare for either their actual end of life, because there were, let's face it, there's a lot of baby boomers who are reaching an age and a point in their life where they might leave the academy. And so some of what we're speaking to might make them feel more at peace and might help them be more prepared. But there's also a separate demographic of like-minded people like you and me who are going to experiencing this death process, if you will, while alive, in order to then get the new that comes with the reward of having done the scout work. And so with the physical and the mental, one of the things that you guys remember from the previous post was that I had specifically mentioned the fact that it kicked up a lot of gunk and I had to work through a lot of shadow. But one of the things that we never got to, because I never really went into full depth of the spiritual cleansing part of it, is what that actually means when the three of them connect. The soul, the body, the ego, and the mind. When they process all the information, there comes a release point that I never really got to because I hadn't yet fully experienced it myself, and I had been going through it as I was talking. And so I wanted to kind of prepare you guys for this. I want you guys that are going through this to understand that the spiritual process and the spiritual ascension portion of this, whether you go on or whether you don't go on, has a lot to do with releasing the old life. Basically, sacrificing your old experience in order to gain the new requires you the full release of everything. But I want you guys to really think about it from a spiritual context, what that might feel and what that might look like for the physical avatar that you are in one, right? Because when you're fully ascending, one of the things that we are coming to understand is the soul fully acknowledges and steps into itself as a physical person and then steps forward into the light publicly, if that's what they're called to do, or privately, if they're more behind the scenes but are part of this process. And so understand that your body then has to accommodate the change. And what I mean is I want you guys to envision the last, 30, 40 years of your life, 50 years of your life, 20 years of your life, however long you've been in the academy this round. And I want you to envision yourself holding a massive boulder on your back. And you've been lugging this boulder for your entirety of your life. And suddenly during this process, you find yourself releasing all of that baggage because you are being informed that there is something new about to come into your life. And you guys know that part of that for me physically was I had to let go of my old job, not knowing what was happening in the future, and I had to be able to purge it. But what I failed to acknowledge at the time, that would be very important for those of you who understand what I'm saying, is that I forgot what that might feel like to the physical body that suddenly is aware that it no longer is carrying the burden of that boulder. For those of you who like tarot, it's carrying the 10 sticks. Right? When you put them down, your body has a physical reaction that mirrors the soul's reaction, which is all of a sudden your body just sinks. It sinks into the couch, it sinks into the bed. It is so exhausted that it's catching up with itself. And if you're not prepared, because we didn't know this would happen, because we're the first classes to really be public with it, you might feel like your vibration is dropping or that you did something wrong because you're suddenly in the nothing. Meaning you're in a limbo state, right? Like if you understand at a very high concept the idea of the possibility that souls go into a life review, you wait in a room before you're called in for your life review in order to prepare you for your rest. Okay. But in the physical avatar, experiencing it in live time, you're not very aware of that process. And so there's a point in your journey when once you've been granted freedom and you are allowed to release the burden of the old life, your body does what it does in death, but while alive, which is it just lets go, right? And when you die, you drop the body. And so what I was experiencing was a sudden amount of exhaustion. I was lethargic. I didn't understand what was going on. I had no motivation to look for a new job, even though I'm going to need it in the future. I have enough money saved that everything's paid and blah, 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 blah. But there was a full release that I wasn't understanding, and it felt like I was not doing enough. It felt like I was dropping the ball and not understanding that I literally had dropped the ball, and my body was being granted the ability to rest. And for someone who has never had the opportunity, if you look at my life, I have never not had to do something in order to survive. And so the idea of being told that I was allowed to just sink into my bed and not do anything for days and days on end if I don't want to, looked like I had done something wrong. And what I'm supposed to tell you is that it is a blessing to be able to release it to such a degree that your body is allowed to take a fucking break. And I was so confused by this because my mind kept telling me, I need to do something. It was still fighting for survival when I didn't need to fight for survival. I had prepared myself enough to have a little bit of leeway. And in order for me to kind of fully release this, I had to let my mind, body, and soul have a moment to just veg out and not do anything. And so one of the things that I started to pay close attention to in the process is I stopped ingesting content on my feed that was fear-mongering or that was driven towards materialism or greed, because it gives you a certain level of angst to your personality trait or what you're getting. It makes you feel like you need to always be doing something because why aren't you a millionaire? Why aren't you a billionaire? You have all of these gifts. And so there's a possibility for you to look at it like you're failing yourself. But in truth, you are being given the ultimate reward. You're being given the fruits of your labor. But you need to rest. You need the moment to just fully release it and to let the body finally have the break it's been needing. And for many of you who are like me, who've never, ever not had to fight for everything they have in life, it is really jarring and can send you into a dark night of the soul if you're not prepared. Because you suddenly find yourself feeling like you need to be doing, or it triggers memories of when you went into a dark night of the soul, I should say. Because then you suddenly feel like you're not doing enough and you're failing yourself because of past issues you've had. But yet, if you're fully in alignment, what you finally realize, but you have the money now to take the break. And you also have the food and you've paid your bills. So what are you reacting to? And it's an old way of thinking that is part of what you're releasing, which is just because it hasn't worked out last time because you were in wrong alignment, doesn't mean that now that you're in right alignment, you're not meant to take the break. And so I just wanted to say that because as a spiritual cleansing, one of the things that happens is you have to let go of the old incarnation, that old you. Only we're doing it while alive. And there is something new to that. And one of the things that I wanted to point out is that remember, you are pioneering a new path and a new journey. And whether other people understanding it at first is irrelevant. Understand that the way you're going to get through this is by sharing your experience as best you can with what you're willing to share with the world, because you're not just living for yourself. Those of us who are part of this process are now part of the we consciousness, of a collective consciousness. It's not just about you mastering yourself and your emotions and all of that. You are now helping transmute energy on a bigger collective, but in order to do that, you have to let the old everything be drained out in order to get the new breath of life that comes to you when you've completed the process. And so I just wanted to speak to you guys about that because it's so uncharted. And I wanted to remind you guys that part of the process of those of you that are registering and understanding and relating to this vibration is that we used to die. And since we are not dying literally, we are having the ramifications and the symptoms of the process. And we have to make sure that we're in proper alignment. And if we don't feel well and something is actually medically wrong, that we go seek medical attention. But if you're feeling it symptomatically without anything physical, then talking to each other and breaking bread with each other and helping each other understand what we're going through is the best way to build a community that will support us, because it is so uncharted. And one of the things that I'm supposed to say to you guys is the spiritual cleanse is very unique because it's usually done afterlife. It's not usually done while incarnated. And a lot of what you're going to be releasing is people, places, and situations that you may not have been aware of everything they had done to you. But during this process, it may get kicked up during the mental cleansing. And you're going to have to face those shadows. But when you finally get the gift of the break, realize that because no one has really stood as a pillar publicly and reaches a wide audience, that many people are stumbling through the same process that we are, unaware that we are sharing a common experience, but no one's really speaking about it. And it reminded me of the whole collegiate experience that I've been saying about the Earth College, which is some of us are reaching a point where we are entering in from the high school experience, that prepubescent, hate-filled, polarized, dogmatic principality where we're all hateful to each other. And it's like very prepubescent. We're still in high school type of mentality. Many of the collective in this next wave are entering college. And so they're taking their college entrance exams, and they're not aware of it because it's not something you normally do while alive. It's something that you are told or it's explained in your afterlife. But we, as ascenders, are actually getting the opportunity to, as much as we can while we're here, to leave the breadcrumbs and the legacy that will build the foundation from them to spring forth, right? And so then there's also a smaller yet still mighty demographic or group of people who are entering the master's program. And so you're doing your master's thesis, or you're graduating the master's thing. And so understand that you're then going to be presenting your master's thesis to whatever you believe in. And then there's still even a smaller portion that is entering their PhD and doing their dissertation. So when you look at it from that perspective, what you realize is that once you realize and stumble through each section, you realize that because you're the first ones to do it, you're the test dummies. Not that you're a dummy, but it's the best example. You're the tester of the path that's now opening for the collective. And as they march through this ascension process while alive, you're stumbling into stuff is the answer, because once you stumble into it, you realize what is happening, and when the epiphany goes off, what do? You immediately go, oh, is that what this is? And finally, whatever you believe in, your guides, God, whatever your mystical headquarters is, can acknowledge that you're right, but they can't cue you as to what to do, because you're charting the territory and you're charting the course for the others to come. Basically, look at it like this. Let's say that you have a new program in your school, and it is a hybrid between spirituality and psychology. And the people who are doing this are brand new. This is a new class. It's never been done before at your academy. And so the people who are doing it are setting the course up as they go. Their life experience is what's telling the higher realms what's going to happen probably to the people that follow. And so it's a trial run. You make mistakes and you course correct, and then you adjust, and then you try again. But the thing is, you can't tell everyone what the answers are, because then they don't learn. And the purpose of life, as far as we know, is to learn and grow, to convert lessons into blessings. But the only way to do that is for you and me as students or as teachers to make the mistakes and come to the realizations of our own accord in order to then ask the right question for which they confirm it. But they can't tell you what to do, right? How would you learn if they did? And if you're setting up a new course of work for a large demographic of people, then you're going to make what I call the mistake of stumbling upon the answer. And in that process, you will be able to get the confirmation you need once it's achieved in order to realize what it is that you were doing all along, and then it will make sense to you converting the lesson finally into the full blessing. And then each time that you do that, you're now edging a new path with each one of us that does this. And you're solidifying for the higher realms, if you will, or whatever you believe, aliens, whatever you believe has set this all into motion. You are the experiment. So as you lay the work and the bricks that lead the foundational work for the others to follow, understand that they are auditing your process because you have been chosen as vessels that can handle it, and that they can't tell you the answer unless you ask the right question, meaning you have garnered the right experience and opened the right door, taken the right path, taken the appropriate actions, and established right relations. Then when you accomplish what you were meant to do, they've learned what the pitfalls are that trip you up getting there, right? And that's super important, and it's really beautiful, actually, if you think about it from that lens. But the thing that we're forgetting is that you still have to then do your dissertation, your thesis, or you have to do your entrance exam. And so when you have accomplished all of these things and these epiphanies come to you, are you then turning around and helping the next person in line? Because here's one of the things that I've noticed with this process. And this is an Al statement. I know that some of you are going to think I'm fucking psychotic or crazy or whatever it is. But I bring a lot of love and light into the world, and I stand behind what I'm about to say. I believe the world is filled with love and light, and I believe it's very hopeful, and I believe a lot of great things are coming. But one of the things that we as people don't like to do is to publicly face the world and be afraid that they will ridicule us because we're ahead of the curve, or because we're unique, or because we stand out. And yet everyone on the planet is striving to stand out. And so you end up dull and like almost invisible. But then we have the opportunity in our private life where it really matters, where it's not materially driven or it's not egoishly driven, to do something where you share your own personal story and release the fear of other people's opinions. You do something rather incredible and something I call divine, which is you hand the vine of hope to another human being. And when you share your story, when you present your entrance exam to the college program, or when you share your thesis with the world, or when you present your dissertation and choose the path that you will walk on, you receive the diploma. And once you've got your diploma, opportunities present themselves to you that you never imagined would be there. But you first have to finish the coursework you are working on. So what I'm trying to say to you guys is, as we go through this process, understand that you're looking for like vibrational people and like-minded people, but you don't have to force it. They will come towards you by your own testimonials and what you have done, because they will relate to different aspects of your journey. And one of the things that's been revealed to me as I head into this next portion of my life is that I have never not documented everything I did, and I never understood why. I remember when I first wrote my first 3 books on Amazon, I self-published, and it didn't really go anywhere. But I remember a dream where I was specifically told, this book is not going to make any money right now. This is for the future. This is for people who will follow you, and you may not even be incarnated to see the benefit of it. You're not here to live for just you, you're here to do something great. And so I always said, okay, whatever. But then as I went through each of the aspects to the journey and the demolition of my life and the whole melee that came from 2018 to 2020, and then having to march the ground and the terrain of what that was like when everything came crashing down in the dry run, I couldn't shut myself up. I kept sharing it. I couldn't stop. There was something in me that said, please share what you're sharing, because you never know who's going to be following in some way, shape, or form that will have just the same struggles and face so much adversity. Please don't think about yourself or what other people will ridicule at. I know that you're going to lose friends, and I know that everything's going to implode on you, but there will be something of merit to your journey. What I never realized is each of those breadcrumbs is part of my thesis. It's part of my own journey. And it wasn't bravery or courage. It was something inside of me that just said, you are blessed with wealth of knowledge. Are you going to keep it to yourself, or are you going to share it even if no one's listening? And I never understood why I was so driven to do things like that. I'm a very middle of the road person. I'm neither left nor right. I literally look at everything objectively, and I look at it from the standpoint of, well, how does this affect the greater collective? And then I sit in 12 different perspectives on each topic. Like, it's a process for me to be declarative in what I've come to in my life. But during the journey, I didn't have that restriction. So if you go back to my work on LinkedIn in documented form, you'll find that the first half of 2018, 2019, and 2020, there were long-winded, explorative conversations that were pages of documents. And people would get lost in it, and I could understand that as time went on, it became more concise, more concise, more concise, more concise, more concise. And it was part of a coursework. It was teaching me something that I didn't know I was being taught at the time. Because again, whereas before 2020, there were great pillars and teachers and masters that had walked the ground before, this newness of where we're going is brand new to the collective. And so there are people who haven't walked it before, though they have prepared us. And I remember specifically what got me through was Jesus and the Buddha, and walking that fine line of trying to navigate and have faith in both, and have the faith in myself to understand that whatever I was sharing would someday be of service to someone else. And even if that never comes to pass where I ever see it, someone may stumble upon it one day, and they will read something that they thought they were the only ones going through. And that is why we leave the breadcrumbs for each other, and why some of us are brave and courageous enough to go ahead of the curve and be ridiculed and be made fun of. Because you are the pioneer that breaks the wall that gets the collective moving forward, right? We're up against a lot of stagnation. And one of the things I'm going to tell you about the spiritual cleansing that I need to prepare you guys for is it's a part where everything is peaceful suddenly. You're in a waiting room. And before they present what you're going to be doing next, you have to be self-aware enough to realize, have you finished the cycle and shared what you know in order to open the door to begin with? How can you knock on the door of fate or destiny if you haven't completed the coursework? And the coursework is, when you get to that place, understand that there is a great sense of peace and a sudden overwhelming of weight off of you, and you sink into it. And if you're not in proper alignment and aren't hearing from each other and aren't conversing about what you're experiencing, you may feel like you're misaligned, even though you're being blessed with tranquility and peace, which for those of you who are like me who've never had that and have had to fight for every fucking thing you've ever had, is completely jarring. Remember, when you get your dreams and when things work out, I'm not saying this is the dream, but I'm saying, like, when you accomplish something really big, it's usually more jarring than if you failed, because most of you will be used to falling and failing. But when you succeed in something, it's really even more jarring to you. And I'm just supposed to remind you that it is a blessing. You're being granted the ability to breathe for the first time in your life. But when you're in that moment, suddenly your epiphanies will become something crystallized, and you will be able to speak to it in a way that helps other people who are with you or coming behind you understand why they're experiencing what they're experiencing in a new way, because it's new terrain. So, what I'm going to say is there are going to be choices that you all are going to make. And one of the things that I'm going to say that's very specific is when you reach a certain point in your journey, Whether the world sees you as successful or not is irrelevant. You're going to find a sense of peace in which to speak from, and you're going to find your center, and you're going to be able to do something incredible, which is choose to share your story once and for all. And you're not going to worry so much about people coming at you because you know you're protected, especially if you're sealed. You're doing something incredible for both dark and light, right? It's a new leg of the journey that without us being successful in it, stops all of the simulation from going forward because there's no growth. So know what you're willing to share with other people without being too invasive to yourself, and understand that sometimes you just speaking a personal journal like I do on LinkedIn and on YouTube, that it may resonate with someone you can't even see because you're not meant to. You're not supposed to be looking for validation from another person. Instead, you're supposed to be walking the path, and other people who are walking with you are going to support what you've encountered, but you're not going to always hear from them. So take away the idea of getting attention for it while you're walking the path, because you haven't done your dissertation. You haven't done your thesis. You haven't presented anything. So understand that when you are at this level, you're not only presenting it to the higher realms who will decide what's the best course of action for you, which takes a great deal of release and surrender to something higher than you to basically give you the options that is best suited for what you've mastered or what you've learned. And you then have to take that degree and do something with your life. But you still have to get hired to do that function. And so what I'm recommending to you guys is to do what I'm doing, which is let go of the fear. Speak to the love and light of each other and help each other understand by just being you. I have gone through all of this. And a lot of it is going to resonate with a great many more of you when all hell breaks loose, possibly in 2025. But as we head into that, we know where the pitfalls are that they will be looking at. When things shut down from any type of communal type of disease or anything like that, there's no one to reach if you need emergency money, if you need food stamps, if you need... So there's a lot of stuff that we have already incurred and have learned through the dry run that may be a benefit to other people. So you leave the documentation and stuff. Because I was thinking, do I need to write a book now about this? And I realized I don't. Everyone that has read my work will know what to expect. And they will also, they can just go through LinkedIn and look through all of it if they're a seeker. And so what I realized is that I'm preparing for something else, but I needed to finish the cycle fully and turn around and just tell you guys, everything you're experiencing is a universal quality because we are all in the human experience together. And there are incredible voices that already exist who have pioneered it, maybe not as you have, but have laid it in musical tracks, Coldplay, Imagine Dragons, people who are incredibly powerful, that are different vessels that do it differently than you do. And your awareness and your expertise is bridging and bringing those things towards each other in your own world in order to open the doorways to help you to navigate through what you're going through. Each of us have different missions. But as you share your stories, you never know who's going to stumble upon your work. And instead of worrying about validation, immediate validation, why not look at the long-term trajectory of where you're going and understand that what you've done is pretty badass. And you're not going to get any thanks for it. Because, well, who's going to thank you? The energies that are auditing you may not even be physical, or they may be governmental, and they're doing it to observe what the pitfalls are and what the dangers are for other people, and trying to help people, because there's always dark and there's always light. So you know that there are dark energies who want us to fail, and then you know there's light energy beings who want us to succeed. But when you're charting new territory, you are the experimental guinea pig. You're the one who has to share the experience so that they can understand what's going on, and then from you, they can grow and help the collective be more prepared for when shit really goes down. And that's an incredibly rewarding thing. But don't seek immediate gratification. Instead, look at the long-term trajectory of what you're doing and kind of look at it from, well, okay, what can I share about my experience, and am I willing to open myself up? Because if I am sitting here asking to be of service to the great collective consciousness, then I'm going to probably have to be able to speak publicly about it. So have you laid the information and the breadcrumbs that laid in whatever way you do? Some of you are songwriters, right? I named 2 incredible bands that really helped me get through my life. I love Chris Martin and I love Dan Reynolds. Some unicorns like me dream of dragons, I'm just saying. But the energy is really powerful. They do through music. And if you listen to the words, they heal us and they guide us without actually being overly spiritual or anything. They're just being them. but they left breadcrumbs in their harmonies, and they say incredibly instrumental things to help us rise, right? And there's other musicians and there are actors who speak so eloquently and can go into different characters that lay foundational work for us to grow, right? Like there's certain pieces of art and certain movies that have been out there that have been instrumental in waking the collective out of slumber into a more conscious state, right? Because that's what we're talking about when we say awakening. It's to become fully conscious of what things are going on around you and to be able to kind of navigate the seas of uncertainty through intuition and being fully there and seeing beyond the veil of bullshit and all of the hateful crap. And to see the love and light, right? Because there's nothing more the devil would want for us as human beings than to give up, right? Because then they own it. Right? If they can tell if everyone gives up all at once, then it's really easy for the dark energies to inherit the earth and everybody get dragged into hell. But as long as there's vessel of lights like you and I who are like, you're not tricking me. Every person I meet is a really good person, and the people that I don't meet are just lost. The ones that are like evil and stuff like that, they're just lost. They're being manipulated and whatever it is. They have their own journey, but they are not the representation of the true human spirit. So you stand as vessels of that, and when you share your story and do your dissertation or your master's thesis, or you share your experiences, even at minimal levels, you are helping someone who will stumble across you at the right moment for them. So be open and be conscious of the fact that you are doing incredible things, but it may not be thanked right away. And if people talk shit, let them talk shit. I don't know about y'all, but I got some really powerful energies around me, and they don't play with me, and they probably don't play with you. So instead of worrying about what they're doing, why don't we just keep working together and trying to build communities with each other and stop pointing out where other spiritualists are failing because we're all in the academy together. This is about working together and harmonizing the chaos and bringing the tribes together. And that's really tricky because a lot of people are very dogmatic, and that's fine. But don't sit there and agree that we need to get rid of all religions when each religion holds a piece to the puzzle. What we need to do is have the religions try working together, because in the end, the greatest epiphany any human being can have is whatever you call the great architect, whether you call him God, Allah, whatever you call him, they would never sacrifice vessels of light out of ignorance. They won't destroy them just because there are people who are really dark, right? You're not going to destroy a vessel of light just because they're in a different house, if you know that they are serving the great architect no matter what. If they bring love and light into the world, and they bring unity, and they bring harmony, and they try to break down chaos in order to bring something new and beautiful to the world, then you know they're not going to go after those individuals. So do not be fooled by that shell and that experience. Instead, walk in opposition of that and learn to just let that shit go, right? And let your higher self or whoever it is you believe in take care of it for you. But we need to start building community, and we need to start sharing our experiences. And what I'm going to say is that what I've learned is that once you've presented enough of what you've been through, you just never know what can happen. Because you never know what piece of information you give someone that will heal their heart. Right? When you think that you're completely 100% walking through the desert and you stumble upon someone who gives you clarity or somehow helps you feel uplifted, it is like a lifesaver. And it's just another being of light, acknowledging your experience. And the only way to do that is to be forthcoming and to share it and to allow people to say what the fuck they're going to say. But in the end, you hold so much light. That's why you're a pillar. And regardless of what happens, regardless of whether I go on, or regardless of if I do go on, what happens in 2025. As I ramp up into this process of whatever the door is that lays on the other side of all of this, one thing that I am grateful for is for you all. Because I couldn't have gotten here without the people on YouTube who were breaking through the facade of the bullshit and were touching on topics and things that I was feeling. It was not only YouTube, but it was LinkedIn. There were different people, pillars in different segments of the population who were just talking. And they were sharing their experience, and they were going through hell and high water because people were going after them. And then suddenly it became an even bigger concept because now they're even going after like Dolly, they're going after Taylor. All of these are beings of light. But it started with us humbly just being ourselves and challenging the norm, not in a way to be rebellious, but to be of service, right? Because we believe in a higher vibrational way of life. And we're not lost. We're not part of this new world order bullshit where they're trying to annihilate everything. And we're not those people. We are people who believe in the system. We're just trying to figure out how to course correct it because of all of the hypocrisy, greed, and corruption that surrounds the Maya and the illusion of it. But we're not lost believing that humanity is lost, right? There's too many of us who have been standing before all of the world saying, hey, I know shit's hitting the fan, but are we really paying attention? And so I just want to say thank you to those of you who helped me along the journey. And hopefully when you stumble upon this or any of the work that I've done, I can be of service to you in any way, shape, or form. But when you get the degree, whatever the door is, whatever happens, whether I live or die or whatever the fuck it is, I then have to choose what avenue best suits me. And one of the things that I'm saying to you guys is once I started to really stumble into this and finally get the acknowledgement and the right relations and things were being verified because I had gotten the right question, when that started to happen, it started to be revealed to me other things. Like, what is it that I want to do? Do I want to work with ending child trafficking, which is a big fucking issue of mine? Do you want to help with children's services? Do you want to help with... I am really nonprofit driven. In fact, I'm going to tell you something. You're going to be tested with people who have chosen contracts with the devil over contracts with the divine. And one of the best ways that I can tell you how to monitor this and to have discernment is that the devil requires you to sacrifice love for money, whereas the divine asks you to sacrifice materialism for love. And when you encounter people that have hardened hearts and have chosen billions of dollars over love and can never have a sustainable relationship and start to become vitriolic with the way that they are, then you realize who they've signed contracts with. And you're going to have to be able to very politely be like, no, thank you, I'm good. And instead you're going to follow people and work with people who have chosen love over the materialism, because materialism is non-transferable. I hate to break it to you guys. I know everybody wants to be a billionaire, millionaire, and all this stuff, but none of them give to charity. And if they do, it's very small amounts. I'm all about nonprofits. I wish there was an institution or some sort of, not institution, but an entity, a nonprofit that literally brought all the other nonprofits together. Because each nonprofit is specialized, and each of them have different facets of the population that they are called to serve. But we need something that brings them all together and helps people be more able to staff them properly. Like, there are a lot of people out there like me who are now being handed their degrees, and but there's so many things to choose. I want to kind of work with everything, and nothing is there to hold that type of turquoise leadership that I've been talking about for 6 years. So as we try to get that all together, you never know with what you're working on if that will attract the right person to come towards you. But be advised to look at the whole scale of who they are and who they're surrounded with. Because I have my eye on somebody that I really, really like, and this is a test. But I had to walk away from this person because of who they were associated with in close proximity, and this person being obviously someone who has signed their soul away. And so for me personally, I was just like, yeah, you know what? As much as I like you, the idea of them being in my life all the time is a big hell fucking no. Nope. Because all they're going to do is try to break apart our love. This person has become so hateful towards the world around them, it can't stop being that way. That all I know is that if we got together and you were associated with this person, they would do everything they can to tear us apart because of jealousy, because they signed their love away. They sacrifice love in order for their money, and they will do anything to keep everybody else down. And I was like, I had to make a tough choice. I chose divinity. But I'm choosing a path that is not very materialistically driven because it just doesn't mean anything to me. A king that wears a crown wears the crown because they have the wherewithal to actually hold the crown and understand all of the layers. A queen, the same. An empress and emperor, even more powerful, because they literally aren't doing it for the money and they could care less. They're doing it out of love and servitude for humanity. So I'm on a different wavelength, and I think many of you are too. But you're going to have to take that degree you've earned with your life experience and all of the shit you've been through. And you're going to have to find a way to open yourself up to the ideas that come to you after you've done your dissertation presentation, all that, and then allow the universe to do something that is really uncomfortable for me and you, which is allow them to present you with the different organizations and groups that would be best appropriate for who you are. right? Because if you believe in ascension as a human and you know that we used to die in order to do this, in order to become an angel or guardian angel or whatever department we would go to afterwards if we graduated the school, then you understand that in lifetime, if we are truly ascending while still alive and going through the death process and then the rebirth process, then you understand that there will be things presented to you that is best suited for your particular skill set. And you have to be open to let the universe bring the right people towards you and have the wherewithal and the discernment skills to know when something's not right for you. And then if the person approaches you, to have the strength and courage to explain to the person why you're not interested and say, I can't tell you who to surround yourself with or who to do business with. But my calling is so specific that I can't do that. Right? There are certain people that I cannot be around. People who spread hatred and intolerance and support people who are trying to demolish everything that we stand for, I can't be associated with. I know that that's your career path, and I know that's wonderful for you. But I understand that if we were in a personal dynamic, that I would always excuse myself if you brought that person near me. I would excuse myself for the conversation. You see what I'm saying? So there's all these layers that we need to look at. But first understand that you have to be open to receive the possibility that you might get course corrected, meaning that you didn't do anything wrong, but let's say that that you suddenly find an opportunity come to you in a different country, or you find an opportunity that comes to you that somehow serves humanity, and that suddenly you find your passion again. Because when you go through this spiritual cleansing, you suddenly feel like you're not passionate about anything because you released the weight of the old, and you're still waiting for the new. Right? You're entering that really powerful stage of your life. So understand that you're going to have to be free and clear of any type of preconceived notion, because you might have to pivot. And that's something I'm really conscious about, is that I don't know what happens next. I'm not worried about it. I'm living each day the best I can, and I'm doing the best I can with what I've got. But I realized that until I actually finished the entirety of the process and spoke to you guys about what I was experiencing, I couldn't finish. I was still like looking for something else, but I hadn't finished what I had done. And the truth was is that I'm now presenting my life experience to a much higher concept, the higher realms of everything I worked through. And I'm saying to them ever so politely, I want to do something with my life purpose, and I want to do something with my life experience. But I want to do something that is in the best interest for humanity, and I'm really looking at nonprofits and charities. I specifically have a really soft spot for the suffrage of children across this fucking planet because of all the visions I've seen in my dreams of the horrendous things that are happening behind the scenes by these horrible people. And so I really am interested, but I have to be open that may not be where I'm best suited. Maybe I'm supposed to go and to do something political, or I'm supposed to go be a humanitarian somewhere. But until you present your life experience to the world and you walk in your truth and your own empowerment, then the right people and the right relations may not see you as the true vessel that you are, because you haven't finished the coursework. What's your thesis? What's your dissertation? What's your entrance exam? What is it you bring to the table so that they can look you dead in the eye and see the beauty and light that you are? And when that happens, you might find miracles at your doorway, where suddenly a door opens that you never would have considered because it's part of a pivot. Love is the ultimate answer to everything. Without it, you have nothing. I don't care how much money you have. But if you don't love each other, and you don't love yourself, and you don't love humanity as a whole, then how can you make it to this next level? Where we're going is a brand new vision. And the boss is really specific. He is cleaning house. But I'm more worried about, what about all the good people of our planet who are feeling invisible and not being seen? What do we do? How can we serve that? And the only way I can do that from where I'm at is to share my story and be willing to be made fun of, and be willing to stand before you and let you judge and giggle and laugh like always. But at the end of the day, that always no longer exists, does it? It's wording. The old experience for many of us is going, and the release of it is traumatic, in the sense that if we're not sharing our experience with each other, then we don't fully register or understand what it is that we are experiencing, and we feel like we've done something wrong. But in truth, you're being blessed with a break. And who doesn't need a break before the next leg of the journey? So what I say in the end is, I hope that my presentation of my life and the work that I've done in both written form and the work that I've done both in video and all of the different ways that I've spoken to it somehow helps at least one or two of you navigate the seas of uncertainty as we walk this path. But you understand now that some of you are the pioneers and the scouts that are setting the stage for what's to come. And you are allowed a moment of rest. But be open to change. And be open to the realization that you may have thought you were going one way, but you may be needed in another way. And so be open to it. Just have the discernment to know what's a trap. Because when you are a divine light and you reach a certain point along the journey, they do like to test you, and well, the dark energies like to try to fuck you over. So think of it like a point system. If they can screw you up towards the end, then they get higher points. So you need to have the wherewithal to go, no, I can see where this pitfall is. Nothing personal. I'll tell you why I don't want to partner with you, and then I hope you understand it, but you'll have to respect my boundaries. You know what I mean? But be open, be forthright, be honest with yourself, be honest with what you're willing to share, and just know that you never know whose life you touch by giving your commentary on your life experience, because you never know who else is walking alongside you that you may just not have met yet. So in the end, understand that the spiritual cleansing is a very beautiful moment, and it will still keep going. For those of us who will continue on and act as pillars and so forth, you have to be open to whether or not you stay or go, and have to face that fear. And if you do stay, then you have to be willing to understand that you have to be receptive to the possibility that it may be somewhere that you did not expect. Bye, guys.